I didn't know what the hell to do. My first instinct was to jump in the driver's seat and run for it. But then I imagined bullets flying through the windows. It seemed reasonable to think a person skulking through a dark forest would be armed. I wanted my pistol from the glove compartment more than anything, but my arms refused to obey. The footsteps were moving slowly, like someone was checking out my truck, and when they turned to walk along the passenger side, my body finally moved. Without a phone slide, it was too dark to see anything, but as I slowly inched forward, the footsteps paused next to the front passenger door, and my heart stopped along with them. I hesitated with my hands on the glove compartment's handle, wondering if the light would come on when I realized something that shot chills down my spine. I hadn't locked the doors after using the bathroom. Instead of fumbling for the controls, I felt for the knob and gently pushed it down. At the same instant, the dull thought of a locked handle being pulled broke the night silence like a gunshot, and there was no further caution in my movements. I ripped open the glove compartment, grabbed my gun, and racked one into the chamber as the sound of several footsteps fled back into the forest. There had been nothing to indicate multiple people were outside, but there was no mistaking it. Now, feet were skidding across the pavement as others were already tearing through the thick brush, and I threw myself into the driver's seat. The headlights came on just in time to reveal the last two figures vanished into the darkness. I was in tears with relief over the fact I had turned around before parking. And it wasn't because of forethought but fear. Just looking at the long, dirt road made my stomach clench. As for the group of crazies, I don't know. It might be time to entertain the possibility that I'm the one who's crazy. I only caught a quick glimpse as I sped away, but those people resembled terminal cancer patients with animalistic movements. They were sickly thin and hunched over like gorillas, but moved with deceptive speed, thanks to the adrenaline. I was wide awake and traveling faster than I should have been, but I wanted as much distance between myself and those people as possible. After driving a few miles, my brain slowly began formulating coherent thoughts again. I think it's safe to say my new friends don't have motorized transportation. But I drove for almost an hour before stopping. If I didn't close my eyes, I was going to fall asleep at the wheel. And if I wreck, I'm dead. There were 3 hours before dawn, so I set an alarm, passed out, and was somehow still alive when it sounded. I woke to a foggy morning, and the long road ahead served as a bleak reminder of my situation. Mother Nature called, and I was starving, but luckily there were a few basic supplies in the truck. After eating 2 power bars, I somehow managed to stick with water instead of downing the bottle of whiskey, and thank goodness, or I wouldn't have it now. The shit I've seen today is enough to make that gun look mighty appetizing. All goddamn day I kept on driving straight down that same road, the way I should have been going in the first place. I didn't care if it took 12 hours to find the next town. I wasn't going to start turning down a bunch of random roads that could take me in circles. By 9, I had seen nothing but trees and grassy clearings. My stomach was growling louder than my music. and I was barely containing my anger when a familiar beeping sent me soaring over the edge. When I finally regained a modicum of control, my throat was raw and my face looked as red as it felt. The gaslight was on, and the possibility of dying out here became very real, very fast. When I came around the next curve, I thought I was hallucinating. A small gas station suddenly appeared in the distance, but there was no way I had driven farther than yesterday, and I definitely hadn't passed it without noticing. As I came closer, my heart sank when I realized it was abandoned. There were no other cars, lights, or signs, just old pumps in a dark store. I parked anyway, just to think for a minute, and continued to be surprised. The building looked like it hadn't been touched in 20 years, yet the pumps looked as if they were installed last week. I got out to stretch my legs, and the one next to me turned on, including its TV. It shouldn't have been possible, but that hardly matters in this place. Whether I was hallucinating or not, I wasn't going to waste the opportunity. Even more astonishing than the fact it worked was the woman on TV. She was giving a local news and weather report like what you would see at a normal gas station. After refueling, I decided to take a look at a store. I was completely out of food and on my last bottle of water. I would have taken anything that wasn't poisonous, but I was shocked to find water, soups, and canned fruit simply there for the taking. While those were fully stocked, there were no snack foods, soft drinks, or random accessories. If the canned sell-by dates weren't so recent, I would think that the stuff had sat there for years. There was nowhere to cook the soup, no phone, and no cash register either. Everything about that store was just off. But as strange as it was, I didn't want to leave. It was nice to finally stretch my legs and to be out of the truck longer than a bathroom break. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to waste time hanging out in an abandoned gas station. In the end, I compromised by staying long enough to eat. I tried not to pin my hopes on someone else stopping by, but I found myself watching the road more than I cared to admit. My original idea was to find a makeshift pot and build a fire, but then I remembered some of my camping gear was still in the truck with my hot plate. The only hard part was opening the cans with a dull pocket knife. As expected, no one came, but I couldn't waste any more time there. At that point, I expected to spend the rest of the day on the road and convince myself to take some supplies. Before I knew it, I dropped the place blind, and I hoped the police came looking. They won't, but I can dream. I felt better with a full meal on my stomach and a truck full of free supplies, but it is hard to keep a cool head when you're coming up on your second night of being lost in the middle of nowhere. I eventually drove straight into the sunset until once again being forced into a sudden stop when the pavement ended. The way forward was yet another long, dusty trail, and this one inspired the same cold dread as the last. Logic told me the weird. Pale people couldn't be way out there, but I wasn't taking any chances too. I turned back and drove for another hour before stopping for the night. After eating a can of peaches, I started writing, and now I can't stop thinking about that lady on that little TV. She was talking about these roads like they were their own town or something. And I want to hear that part about being stranded again. Maybe I'm not the only one who has had this happen. Either way, I've had enough for one day. I need more than a few hours of sleep. Staying on this road isn't an option anymore. Tomorrow, I'll need to choose one of the cutoffs.